Hello and welcome into Fantasy Focus Football. My name is Daniel Dopp, here with Yates, here with Mike Clay, ready for a big Thursday show, guys. We got a bunch of rankings we're going to dive into a little bit. Wellness check we're going to do with a bunch of people. Make sure that, we're going to do a little lukewarm. Are we hot? Are we cold? Are we lukewarm? We're going to talk about a handful of players that we are not super thrilled with so far.
What? Say, just today in general.
Just lukewarm on Mike and life.
Regular lukewarm day. You know, we all have our ups and downs each day.
That's true.
And each week and each month. So we're just,
Sadly, it's fall here in Connecticut. But, the thing is that, we decided to skip the cool part of fall where the leaves change colors and it's beautiful out. And you get some days where it's, still a crisp 70 degrees and you can go outside in shorts and a T-shirt. We decided this week to just bypass that. It's 55 degrees, gray, dreary, rainy, no fun.
Kind of like the tight end position.
Wow.
Oh, well done,
really is
sir.
like tight end weather right now.
He's come so far, hasn't he?
Yeah.
So impressive.
Thanks, guys.
Well, he's been following your comedic chops.
That's what.
Next thing you know, he's going to win an Emmy. Which do they give out Emmys to podcast hosts?
I think they're called Webbies.
Webbies. Okay. Well, congratulations on your Webby.
Yeah. Hashtag goals.
Yeah. Nothing wrong with that. Yeah, it's going to be a fun show. Obviously, if you went and checked out yesterday's show, we had a heck of a time being able to figure out the game that we did. Some people really loved it. Some people didn't love it as much. I had a blast, though. So go check out yesterday's show to go just look at all the rankings that we have here.
If you watch and you're like, man, this is a mess, know that we knew that too.
Yes.
We went afterwards, we went to lunch, we sat down, and we just kind of pulled it apart and broke it down. Can this work in the future? How do we fix this going forward? So it was fun. We had a good time with it, but
real coach's moment.
Yeah, it was. We watched the tape.
We watched the tape. We went back, watched the tape.
Preseason for us still, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Wait, never mind. It's week 4.
It's still preseason for half the NFL, it feels like, guys.
It is. Can I announce something?
Uh-oh.
Uh-oh.
I love football.
What? Okay.
That's my announcement. I love football.
That's it?
I was thinking about it. I woke up this morning, and I specifically remember last Thursday when they mentioned that this was back-to-back Thursday night football games at the Meadowlands. Obviously, the Jets last week and now the Giants. And I was thinking to myself at first, I was like, Giants, Cowboys, first of all, how do they always play each other in prime time? Second of all, am I that enthused about a game that could be messy, could be a domination by the Cowboys? And everything can change with just one Sunday. The Giants now 1-2, the Cowboys also 1-2. And I woke up this morning and I was like, dang it, we get to watch football tonight. And that fires me up, man. It's been 2 nights without football, Tuesday and Wednesday. We had to make it a whole 48 hours, back-to-back evenings without football. And we survived. And I just love football. I love watching it. And I can't wait for tonight. Yes, I would love for the players that I'm starting, Cee Dee Lamb or Dak Prescott or Devin Singletary or Malik Neighbors to have mammoth nights for fantasy. But dang it, do I love fantasy.
Yeah, by the way,
this
game is so close to us. Aren't we doing a live show down there? We need
That's
to do
a great
that. Meadowlands
question.
is what, 90 minutes from here at the most? We need to head down there.
He missed the memo that we're
Oh, shoot, you weren't invited?
Oh,
11:15, the car leaves.
Oh, that's
I get it.
weird.
That's why Liz is coming in this weekend.
That's it.
Liz is
Yes.
coming in this weekend. Let's go.
It's going to be a ton of fun having Liz Loza here for Fantasy Football Now. She'll be here at the beginning of next week on the podcast, I think, a little bit too. So we'll dive into that Monday and Tuesday. It'll be always great. Anytime we get to have Liz Loza on the show, it's a ton of fun. All right, let's dive into a wellness check.
All right.
We're going to talk about a handful of players, taking the temperature through week 3. We're talking about whether we are cold, lukewarm, or hot. We can add a little flavor in there on some of these guys.
By the way, this was my idea, so I was kind of working on projections and rankings for the week, and I was like, you know what? Josh Jacobs is just one of those. We'll get to him in a minute. I was just like, he's tricky. Where do we stand on him based on some things going on with, how he started and Jordan Love coming back? And it was like, I'm just gonna, like, as I'm working through the playbook, just jot some names down. Like, I'd like to kind of feel you guys out on. Like, I want your opinions on where you feel, what your feelings are on these players. I mean, I will. I just want to hear from you. I mean, I'm gonna offer my opinion as well because it's the right opinion. But I'm just kind of curious what you guys think on some.
Is
of
that
these
too close to home field? Like you were
maybe. Yeah. That does look. These actually look like very comfortable hospital beds. What a great graphic. Tyler, our producer, is just killing it this year in so many ways.
Missed opportunity without putting your sling in there, but good effort otherwise.
I mean, my sling might be underneath the covers. For those that are just listening right now, we have this awesome graphic of the three of us all in hospital beds.
I love that my beard is so long it gets tucked under the sheets for what it's worth to keep it warm at night as well.
I saw something that, like, it reminded me of how jarring it would be if you shaved your beard. NBA media days are now upon us, and you guys, I don't know if you guys know this or not, but the Celtics NBA champions last year, and yesterday was media day for the champs, and Jaylen Brown showed up without his beard, and he does not look old, but he looked 10 years younger.
Yeah.
Daniel, if you walked in without a beard, and I didn't recognize him at first, I was like, what is going on? Then I was like, oh, wait, that's NBA Finals MVP Jaylen Brown. Sorry, I don't get to get on the fan high horse very often.
You get it out while you can.
Got to get our moments in here.
That's right.
But if you shaved your beard, Daniel, you would literally not be able to, like, you would go to a high school and they'd be like, no, the middle school is actually the next block over.
I would look like Kyle Soppe is the way that.
Yes, you would. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, great call. Miss you, Kyle.
Yeah, I miss that guy. No, it's one of those things. If you like, when I look back at the Air Force pictures that I have, where I had short hair and no beard, I felt like I looked like I was 17 years old, even though I was like 27. Because it's just like not having a beard. I'm very lucky. Like I love, that I am able to pull that off for as long as I possibly can. But with a beard, you definitely add on some years. I got some salt and pepper, a little bit of white coming in every now and then.
I don't at all.
Yeah. Well, Mike.
Nothing. No.
Is that from working with us? I think that must be from working with us.
Absolutely, it is for sure. It's been a grind.
Yeah.
These years. By the way, speaking of a grind, how about shout out Caitlin Clark, who gets a break till April now. I mean, I know it's tough that they lost last night, but Connecticut Sun, congratulations, they advance. Believe it or not, I know a little bit about other sports other than NASCAR and NFL.
I'm floored.
Yeah, I know, he's speechless. Look at this. I watched that game last night. It was local, obviously.
It was awesome,
near here. That was a good game. They came back, but Caitlin's been playing. Like, she had her whole season, and then a whole nother season right after it, and then now she gets a break.
Rebecca Lobo highlighted it, that she had gone. They did like a little feature last night where they had been playing for 12 straight months.
No way.
Insane.
Yeah.
Like, she never stopped. I mean, the Olympic break was whatever that was, 28 days, but that's just a ridiculous amount of basketball to be played in one season.
I just love the commentary. It was like, so are you going to play in the offseason, oversee? No. Like, I'm okay.
Like, I'm finally going to take a break.
I'll take a vacation here. Like,
my jump shot's all right. I'll work on things when I come back. All right, let's dive into this segment. We're talking about if we are hot, cold, or lukewarm on a handful of players. Mike, you gave us a bunch of names to be able to go through, taking the temperatures through 3 games.
Can I ask one question before we start?
Yep, go ahead, my friend.
Do you want us to describe how we're feeling specific to this week, Mike, or is this more state of the
I think
union?
it's in general. It's kind of what you said yesterday. Like, maybe the next month.
Month.
Like, just how you feeling right now about these guys? Feeling really good about them? Like, yeah, I'm all in, or no, I'm really sour on them now, or, kind of in the middle. Basically the same as what we thought.
Okay, cool. I'm going to kick things off. We talked about him a little bit yesterday, but Patrick Mahomes, I think he is the quarterback, one of 2 quarterbacks that people have the most question marks coming into this week, figuring out what they should do with him if they have him on a roster. Because Patrick Mahomes is the GOAT of real football. Yeah. But in fantasy football, it has been disappointing so far to start the season. Quarterback 12, quarterback 18, quarterback 16. If you listened to the show yesterday, I gave you a bunch of other numbers. Over the last 9 games, quarterback 12 was the highest finish that he has had over 9 straight games. He's top 10 in 2 things so far this year.
Oh, God.
Touchdowns and interceptions.
5 to 4, right?
Yes. 5 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. The Chargers have allowed the 5th fewest points to quarterbacks. I am going to say I am lukewarm on Patrick Mahomes. I can't say cold yet because for me, I still believe and I have seen the talent that he has and what he can do on any given Sunday or Thursday night or Monday night, whenever it is, of putting up 350 yards and 4 touchdowns when this offense clicks. So, like, I can't get off him long term, but obviously in the short term, I'm okay if people want to go a different direction this week. So I would say I'm lukewarm on Patrick Mahomes? Field, where are you at?
I would say lukewarm as well. And I thought about cold for a second, but then I realized this is if this was like, how do I feel relative to where he may have been drafted? The answer is probably cold.
Correct.
But if it's how do I feel relative to what I'm going to do over the next, let's call it month or so, it's lukewarm for this reason, is that while there are other quarterbacks that were drafted early, either this year or in separate years, where it's like, you have to just cut bait and stop starting that player almost immediately. Like Mahomes is still startable. It's just I don't think there's the same level of upside when starting Patrick Mahomes as there was for that ridiculous stretch where it felt like he was the biggest difference maker in all of fantasy football, even at a position that we thought at that time was the deepest, being quarterback. So I am lukewarm on Patrick Mahomes. I think that the Chargers stats I think this defense is playing pretty well. I'm a little, I think the stats are slightly warped only because of who they have played.
Fields, Minshew, Bryce Young.
Yep. Yeah, not great.
So I do think that how they have performed against opposing quarterbacks needs a bit of context put around it. That being said, I do not have Patrick Mahomes inside my top 5 this week or my top 10. He is quarterback 11 for me on the board.
Yeah, I have him 10. I'm lukewarm, but maybe leaning towards a little hot for this week because he tends to, even in the last year and a half, has showed up for the big game. So he's been in the 12 to 17 point range in 8 consecutive regular season games, but he has 18 plus points in 3 of the 4 playoff games last year. So when he had, the pressure was on, he delivered in fantasy. And I think that might apply against the 3-0 Chargers. 17 plus fantasy points in 6 straight against them. And they played this week, 6 points per game. The last time he played the Chargers and didn't throw at least 2 touchdowns was week 17 of 2019.
You think it's different under Jim Harbaugh?
Maybe, but like we just said, I mean, we don't know yet, right? I think on paper they're kind of top-heavy. They have a couple stars. They don't have Derwin James in this game, though. I think they can be had, and it's a big divisional game. It's a big divisional game.
Huge game.
So I would not be surprised if he has a big game here in week 4. I know he said kind of broad, but I think I lay out the matchup this week because I think there's an opportunity for him to kind of jump back into a big game.
All right, so I want to ask this then. Can we talk about a couple of quarterbacks, and we'll do this with the next guy too. Quarterbacks that you would feel comfortable starting over Patrick Mahomes this week, just to give some context around it for our listeners. I'm not going to do the top 5. It's obvious who the top 5 are to me. C.J. Stroud or Patrick Mahomes? C.J. Stroud.
I believe I have
Stroud, but that one's close too. It's not like Stroud's been lighting the world on fire.
It's not.
Right, and not running a lot.
Joe Burrow taking on Carolina or Patrick Mahomes?
I'm going Joe Burrow there. He was obviously awesome on Monday night, and Carolina's so inexperienced in the secondary. I think other than J.C. Horn, not really a player that scares you there. So big day in store for Joe Burrow.
Brock Purdy taking on the New England Patriots.
Brock leads the NFL in passing yards. He's been really solid, so I'll go Brock Purdy as well.
All right, what about Dak Prescott taking on the Giants tonight? We'll dive more into Dak a little bit.
I give the edge to Dak without giving away too much.
I think I have it really close. I think I'm 10 and 11, something like that. So that's a toss-up. I believe maybe I have Mahomes one spot ahead there.
All right, what about last 2? Daniel Jones. Daniel Jones this week, obviously taking on the Dallas Cowboys.
So here's what I would tell you. Is that there are other leagues. There is a league where I am starting Daniel Jones. It's a deeper keeper league where I came into the season very, very shallow at quarterback where I'm starting Daniel Jones. That would be a really hard one to actually execute the lineup switch there.
To hit the button.
Can you imagine being like, here we go now. Daniel Jones in for Patrick Mahomes. I can't do it.
You do it right before the game and then you walk away.
You don't watch the game.
Yeah.
You fall asleep. You take some.
I don't know. I mean, if you put Jones in and watch him play this Dallas defense, it's been so bad this year. It might be great. It might be having a great Thursday night tonight if he lights him up. He has 2 touchdowns in back-to-back games, and now he's playing the worst overall defense in the league tonight. So
I know. I'm just
we'll
I hear
talk about
you.
that later more.
But geez, isn't it
feel good.
I know.
That's a test right there.
I mean, that's why I was laughing because I think the projections actually show Jones just ahead of Mahomes, but I flipped it for my rankings because I'm like, I can't do it. I can't put Jones in over Mahomes.
That's like one of those emotional things as a fantasy manager of can I actually make this move? There's 3 other guys. I'll be real quick.
It's a level of instinct for ranking players.
What about Justin Fields? Would you do Justin Fields?
I would do Patrick Mahomes.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm Mahomes.
Baker Mayfield with what he's looked like recently?
Mahomes.
That's really close, but Patrick Mahomes for me.
Okay, and last one would probably be Sam Darnold. Taking on Green Bay, Sam Darnold has looked really good recently. When you look at the box score, it's tough to be like, wow, how am I not? Just take the names out of it. How do I not
Patrick
start
Mahomes.
Sam Darnold? But it's just.
Here's what I want, though. We're going to do a lot of names that are big, but none bigger than Patrick Mahomes, obviously. If you can, tweet at us, either at Mike, Daniel, myself, the show, Fantasy Focus, all of the above, whatever. If you're actually benching Patrick Mahomes this weekend, send us who you're doing it for.
Love that.
I'll be very curious.
Yes, please.
Because this is the biggest name in the sport. If you're doing it for somebody that we talked about right now, we already kind of get it, right? All those are relatively close. If you're doing it for somebody lower down the rankings, shout out, because go big or go home. So I can't wait to see what the responses are like.
I love it. I love it. All right, let's talk about another quarterback then that has been really difficult. Guy we didn't even mention.
Sorry, I have to use the bathroom.
Oh, Field's got to leave for this part. Anthony Richardson has been so difficult. He looks so inaccurate. Under a 50% completion percentage. His accuracy is awful, and the Steelers have allowed the fewest points to quarterbacks. I guess I'm in the same spot that I was with Patrick Mahomes. I'm going to say lukewarm, in spite of the fact that I want to say cold, because we've seen what he can be and what he can do. If he uses his legs the way that we want him to, that is how he gets back into our good fantasy graces. So I'm just waiting to see that part of his game unlocked, which is why I'm going to say lukewarm.
Yeah, I'm sticking with lukewarm as well, but I'm thinking about going hot. I just feel like, got to commit to it, right?
Speaking into existence for us.
Yeah, but here's what I would say, is that, I do still feel like the floor for Anthony Richardson this year could be a little bit of what we've seen from Justin Fields in prior seasons in this regard. He might lead all quarterbacks in 25-point games this season. Or maybe quarterbacks not named Josh Allen,
That's
right?
Yeah.
But he also might have some weeks that are the absolute dregs, like they have been the past 2
Yeah,
weeks.
the Justin Fields effect.
Yeah, so that's kind of what I think, like with Justin last year, 6 25-point games, but then a bunch of games where you're like, God, why did I start Justin?
Yep,
right?
Yep, that's it.
I do think that's still in the bag of Anthony Richardson, but I'm still confident and hopeful that there's even more to it. The reason why I say lukewarm, though, for this week is not just because of back-to-back games of being bad, but the Steelers. They're just ridiculous right now defensively. I think the hope is this. This is really where I think the hope rests, in 3 things. The first 2, you guys might agree with. The third one, I think Mike will disagree with. The first one is I hope that the Colts do things to get him more comfortable as a player. I think they need to tap into his strengths more. The second is that if he's under duress a lot because the Steelers have a great defense, even without Alex Highsmith, their second best pass rusher, that Anthony Richardson has to run a lot. The third is that it would be the most fantasy football thing alive for everybody to bench Anthony Richardson because he's playing the best defense in the NFL, and then for him to go off.
Yep. Yeah, I hear you. I mean, we did recommend leaning to, we downgraded him. Some of us had benched him last week against Chicago, and we're saying the same. I mean, he wasn't good in a bad matchup for him, and the same thing this week against an even tougher matchup. And by the way, the Steelers have faced Herbert, Nix, and Cousins. It's not like it's not as bad as the Chargers, right? That's some decent quarterbacks. So they've obviously been really good defensively. It's a really tough matchup. He hasn't played well. He's 20th in points per game. I agree. I would lean toward lukewarm or more positive than that going forward because of what he can do with his legs. But he also has to run more. We need more than 6 carries a game from a guy.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
about
and you
leaning
said
into
that.
what he does well, right?
Yeah, exactly right. So I think we'll get there. He's going to have his big games, but this is not a week I would want to start him.
Yeah, 10 carries coming into week 3, and then we saw him tote the ball 8 times. So hopefully we can see more of that 8 to 10 range for his.
I get why. Remember last year when he was healthy for those 4 games, 2 of which he finished, 2 of which he did not. Jonathan Taylor was not on the field. So I get why the Colts have this conundrum. You have this $15 million per year running back that has been very good and deserves the rock too. I personally believe, and this is not trying to make something happen that I obviously very much want to happen. I think the wellness of the Colts, to use the term that we're describing for our segment, the highest percentile outcome for the Colts as an offense requires a whole lot better version of Anthony Richardson. And if that means a little bit less work for Jonathan Taylor, for fantasy purposes, good.
I'm okay with it.
But I think for real life, good as well. I really ardently, passionately believe that.
Yeah, I agree.
Let's hope that happens. All right. Those, I think, are the 2 biggest quarterbacks. 2 toughest quarterbacks for people trying to figure things out, not just this week, but moving forward with the next couple of weeks. Let's talk about some wide receivers that we have.
Let's rip through these babies.
Tank Dell. Oh, Tank Dell has been tough, guys. Is yet to finish inside the top 40 at the wide receiver position. Top 40!
Yeah, seems bad.
My friends. Outside the top 30 in targets, receptions, receiving yards, 0 touchdowns. The Jaguars, though, have given up the 8th most fantasy points, so this is not a bad matchup for him. The big problem is I still have him as lukewarm. I can't go cold on Tank Dell because this offense is still an offense where, if he just connects on any of those, long plays, he's getting a very deep air yards per target kind of situation. If he connects on any of those plays, like you can see him do some of the things that you want. I'm not ready to start him. I have him firmly in he's like the bench guy for me at this point. I don't view him as a flex, but I would say lukewarm because just going cold doesn't feel right with what he brings to the table.
I'll keep it short and simple here. I'm lukewarm. He is, by the way, on the injury report now. He did not practice yesterday.
It's true. Yep.
But independent of that, what did we talk about coming into the season? Nonstop.
3 wide receivers is tough.
Really hard, and I think the other two are first 2 in line. I think Tank Dell will still have 5 games this year in which he's a top 15 or 20 wide receiver. We've yet to see that through the first 3 games. He, to me, has been about what I expected him to be.
Yeah, that's totally fair. Probably a little worse than that. The good news is 77% route participation so far. He's actually 21st in routes among receivers. So that's good. He's out in the field. He's running routes, but we have to get him a larger share of the targets. It's 27 for Nico, 24 for Diggs, 18 for Dell. We need that gap to close a little bit. But, yeah, it has a shot this week in a good matchup. So I have to go lukewarm based on what we've seen so far, but I'm optimistic he can get back in there and be a weekly flex option.
I was running through target share leaders last night, and I was legit stunned to see that Mark Andrews is now at a negative 18%. I didn't know that existed.
Doesn't feel good.
He just Lamar just throws it backwards into the end zone instead of throwing it to Andrews.
Yeah, he's caught more passes from fans this year than he has Lamar Jackson.
I want that
just like celebrating wins.
Find a way to be real, like the yards per reception stat you shared right before the show.
Yeah, Adam Harstead on Twitter likes to share that one, the wildest stat you've ever seen. And I can't think of the name, but the all-time leader in yards per reception, the best season ever, is 111 yards per catch because he caught a 70-some yard touchdown and then had the ball lateral to him and ran like another 30-some yards or something. So
only one catch.
Average one catch for 111 yards as 111 yards per catch.
It's amazing. You don't get a catch, but you get the receiving yards.
Yeah. Gibbs got this last week. Yep. With the
all right, moving along.
So anyway.
Let's talk. Speaking of Detroit Lions, Jackson Smith and Jigba taking on my Detroit Lions this week.
Yeah.
Lions are really good at stopping the run. They are not necessarily super good at stopping wide receivers this year. Lions have given up at least 17 fantasy points to a wide receiver in each of their first 3 games. Second most fantasy points to the wide receiver position across the board. I've got Jackson Smith and Jigba as hot because I love this matchup for him, and
me too.
We've seen what he has been able to do. It's been a little back and forth, kind of yo-yo-y, but I think this is one of the games where he gets back on track.
I think I'll speak for the masses then when I say lukewarm, only because the matchup, you're right, is solid. I mean, the Lions they're young and inexperienced in the secondary, but 2 games this season, weeks 1 and 3, Jackson Smith and Jigba, a total of 5 catches.
Yep.
And then 12 in the game sandwiched in between. Has he spent too much time around Tyler Lockett? Who you never know what you're going to get regardless of matchup.
It's a great question.
People are asking that.
I'm gonna stick with hot for now. It's probably somewhere between lukewarm and hot, just because he's been so boom bust. But 83% of the snaps he's been on the field for, clearly ahead of Tyler Lockett, and believe it or not, only 3 targets behind DK Metcalf, who's been terrific this season. So we are getting that leap in terms of usage in that offense, an offense that has been pretty good so far this season. The Geno connection to Metcalf and Smith and Jigba has been terrific out of the gate. So I think he'll be more consistent going forward in this role. And you're right, great matchup against Amik Robertson this week, the Detroit's current slot corner. Yep.
All right, let's talk about another guy, Michael Pittman Jr.
This one should be.
Ooh, yeah.
11 catches for 88 yards. He is wide receiver 70 on the season, taking on the defense that we just discussed and being difficult.
Actually, a wild question, though,
Yeah,
getting into this. Is his current target share this season higher or lower than last season when he had, 109 catches?
Whenever you ask a question that
right?
way, it makes you like you're supposed to guess the thing that seems completely unbelievable.
I know, but it's making you think as opposed to
the answer's
just saying
higher, right?
Yeah, it's higher. He had a 30% target share last year. It's 31% this year, which is hard to believe. It just shows you the
not all target shares are created equally.
Yeah, exactly right. We've talked about that before. Like a target share in Atlanta and an Arthur Smith offense is different.
Yeah.
But it's been a rough start.
This is capital
cold.
C cold.
Yeah,
gotta be cold. Yeah.
This is Mike taking an ice bath kind of cold level.
Because
No,
on top of while I hope that Anthony Richardson improves in ways that I highlighted earlier, if he does, it's not going to be an offense conducive to wide receiver play, right? It's going to be like week 1, bombs away. Like it's going to be really hard to turn 9 completions into 215 passing yards and 2 touchdowns.
Yeah.
But it's simply not going to be a high-volume passing offense. It's cold with a capital C like that.
Yeah, no doubt. And maybe when he gets a good matchup, he can get going in the right direction, but he's going to draw Joey Porter Jr. shadow coverage most likely
Feel bad for
this
him.
week. Do you know how many receivers have reached, speaking of stats where I'm just going to give away the answer with how I asked the question, how many receivers have reached 14 fantasy points against the Steelers this season?
So far this season?
Yeah, probably like 6 or 7.
Like 19?
Or 0.
Oh, what? I
Yeah,
did not
shocker.
see that coming.
Yeah, no way. 0 receivers. So is he going to be the first one to do it? Like you said, probably, because that's how fantasy football is. But
Yeah.
he'll have 34 this week. But no, he's definitely bench worthy. I mean, I have him at 34 based on that huge target share, but tough one to start.
Doesn't feel good.
Outside the top 30 for all of us.
Speaking of cold, can I just ask you guys really quickly? I specifically did not wear the normal kind of socks that I wear. You guys both wear ankle socks, and your ankles are showing almost every single day. And I feel uncomfortable with it, but I rolled with it today. How are your ankles not cold every single day when you wear things like this?
They're not, but we're just trying to model after Tyler, right? Isn't he always like
Tyler Fulgham always has his
Super tight like
pants
this?
rolled up, and then he's got low socks.
Tyler Fulgham comes from the Rafael Nadal school of dressing. Remember back in the day, Nadal used to wear capris.
He did.
Which I don't know how you can be an athlete and run around a tennis court in capris, but he did it, and he was dominant. What'd you say?
I said, oh, tennis. That's
That's not
that was a joke. I know who it is.
Anyways, you got to throw a little ankle meat out there for the viewers, Danny.
Well, I just get nervous. Like, I don't want too many people sliding into my DMs, Field.
For ankle picks?
Yeah, that's right. All right, let's talk one more wide receiver. Brandon Ayuk. Oh, he's been so frustrating for fantasy
What do you guys
managers.
think? Like, you going like?
He's lukewarm still.
I think it's lukewarm or above, right?
Yeah,
I can
correct,
see Mike
yes.
saying hot.
Yeah.
But I think this is one where, I've been working, unfortunately, on timeout with my 2-year-old recently. We've taught her what it means to go into timeout. So if she does something she shouldn't do, you got to go into timeout. And I feel like Brandon Ayuk could use like a little bit of timeout to prove that he is the player that we thought he was. I'm going to prove to you, you got to prove to me that you are the 2-year-old that I thought you were. And that you don't take your oatmeal and pick it up with your hand and throw it at the dog's face. Instead, you eat it with a spoon, right?
Yes.
That actually isn't grounded.
I was going to say, did that happen?
No. There
Okay,
are
that would've
things
been
like
cute.
it's other stuff that like sometimes she is not the best big sister to her baby sister.
Oh, well, yeah, that's called.
because she's a 2-year-old.
siblings,
And that causes timeout. But yes, Brandon Ayuk, lukewarm right now, just needs to perform better.
Yeah, I'm going to lean hot. I'm still
course
like
you are.
it was a disaster. Like it felt like a disaster last week, and he's still basically at 10 fantasy points, right? I mean, we wanted a lot more than that. One of the receivers in the offense did have a massive game. If one of those other throws goes to him instead of Jennings, it's fine. They're playing New England this week. I'm not super worried. I've talked about teams not being afraid to attack Gonzalez, who's going to likely shadow Ayuk in this game. And again, he had a 33% target share last week, which is actually a little higher than I had projected. So I think there's a lot of reasons for optimism. I know it hasn't happened yet, but that day is coming.
I can't make a person be someone they're not, but I just want to say this. We're not talking about Cee Dee Lamb, but like Cee Dee Lamb really took a lot of accountability for like, hey, I recognize I didn't show up. He made some comments the other day. Recognize I didn't show up. Maybe on the sideline I wasn't the teammate that I should have been. That's one of the things I would just love to hear from Brandon Ayuk, like in a stronger way, because I think there is a big part of that just knowing that it feels like his head is in the same mindset where it feels like all the rest of us are at.
He talked about how confusing the situation was this summer. Like,
How he made it harder on the 49ers than he needed to. Didn't love that.
By the way, speaking of taking accountability, have we figured out who is in trouble with the Raiders? Like the comments
We have not,
that,
no.
Wait, like who quit on? What did he say? What was the word he
Antonio
said?
Pierce said after the game that some players are making business decisions on the field.
And now they're going to make business decisions. So who is not playing this week? Like who's getting traded, cut, not playing?
Well, that's a good question.
I've been waiting. I'm
Nobody.
waiting
He said
for the
they
other
handled
shoe
them
to drop.
internally. Yeah, I mean, it did not make you think that like one of the names that we know is gonna like not have a prominent role. It felt like more of like middle to the bottom portion.
I heard it was Max Crosby. I mean, that guy barely shows up.
Well, a lot of people like on social, you see like saying it was Devontae Adams, and I'm like, is that? I mean, he's been productive this season.
I don't
didn't
think so. I thought
don't
it
know that I
was,
saw that in the game, so maybe I missed something. But
I don't stand for Devontae slander, so I will passionately defend him as
I
well.
love that. All right, well, I would love for you to passionately defend this guy, Field Jays. We're going to talk about some running backs. J.K. Dobbins.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I feel like this is my first hot call here because of where you drafted J.K. Dobbins. Like, to me, it's all like, this is gravy, right? So I am a touch pessimistic about this week's matchup only because we saw what happened last week when the Chargers were finally playing from behind and playing a formidable defense. And the Chiefs, I believe, are a formidable defense who was they were excellent in bottling up Bijan last Sunday night. So I am a touch concerned that like J.K. Dobbins' yards per carry average will once again dip after going from 9.9 entering Week 3 to not 9.9 after Week 3. But he's playing like a legit running back share. This is like the most evenly distributed backfield so far in the NFL.
Not anymore. That's why I was going to say that. Like
hot because last week it was
I'm hot
more
for
him
sure,
than Gus.
but this is an excellent example of staying lukewarm on players. This is why last week I said explore the trade market because people are going to be. This is his peak value. That's why this week might be the time to go trade for him coming off a bad game because I feel. Honestly, moving forward as somebody that has him on some teams that took late round flyers, I feel better this week than I did last week.
Really, because
the reason
Edwards
is
didn't play as much?
18.
well, yeah, exactly right. So his stats were down, but the thing is, his playing time was way up, 64% of the snaps. That's the second highest of his career. His highest ever came in his rookie season. It was 65%, so barely off of this mark. 75% of the carries went to J.K. Dobbins, and also a 16% target share. He's not going to keep those numbers up going forward, but if it's 60% of the carries and a 12% target share, he's going to be in the RB1 conversation. That is a really good workload for a very talented player in an offense that's going to lean on the run. So this is a tough matchup. Chiefs have been good against running backs so far, but sometimes it's less about this week and it's more like, can I trust this guy going forward or do I need to get out while he's at peak value? I feel like now the playing time suggests he'll be okay.
Seeing
I
him
feel
out.
like Gus doesn't die, though. Gus will fade for a week or two and then boom, right back into it.
Maybe he might steal some goal line work here or there,
Yeah,
but I don't know.
I'm not counting out
but there's
Gus Edwards yet.
But that's the thing. Like every running back is in some sort of level of a committee. Like there's like what 3 backfields where it's like every snap is that player. Like Saquon, Taylor, CMC when he's healthy right now, Jordan Mason. There's not many of those. So then you start to kind of look at what is the share relative to the other running back who's also playing. And if Dobbins keeps doing what he did last week, he's going to be one of those guys in a great spot.
Even though it was a down week, running back 36, he was top 5 each of the first 2 weeks. Out-touched Gus Edwards 18-3.
Huge
last
edge.
week,
Yep.
which was great. All right, let's talk about another running back here, DeAndre Swift.
Oh boy.
This one is another one. This is like my Michael Pittman of the running backs. Like it's cold with a capital C for a number of reasons. I don't understand how you can have 37 carries for 68. Well, I guess I can.
1.8 yards.
That's unheard of.
68 yards. It's the offensive line is just atrocious for the Chicago Bears.
That's part of it for sure. I feel like he needs to be a more decisive runner as well. We're so early on in the season that like one negative run for 10 yards, which you guys may recall, fourth and goal from the 1, it turned into a negative 10-yard gain. That can influence the average a little bit, but still, even if you didn't have that run, it ain't
Screen
pretty.
grab from that run was bad.
Not good. So I asked for this player to be mentioned in the rundown because I want to talk about a sneaky ad on waivers right now.
Yeah, I scooped him up a little bit. I love this guy in the
Yeah,
draft.
Roschon Johnson, 4th-round pick last year, was kind of an underrated pick in the draft. He was Bijan's backup at Texas. No shame in being Bijan's backup, obviously.
no.
A very, very good player. Jeremy Fowler wrote about this a little bit in his weekly column with Dan Graziano. Go read that every week on ESPN+. It's very, very good and chock full of nuggets about the idea of Roschon getting more work this week. And we saw a little bit of it last week. And the thing about the Bears is that while they did pay DeAndre Swift this offseason, like this was a season in which they came in with expectations of being in the playoff mix, which I still think are attainable, but they don't have time to waste, right? Especially in a division that looks like it has 3 other legit contenders. So money be damned. If Roschon's playing better than DeAndre Swift, I think Roschon Johnson will earn more carries going forward. So he reminds me of Bucky Irving in the sense that I'm adding him right now, not because I think he is a guarantee to be in my lineup this weekend, but if you told me a month from now that Bucky Irving was outpacing Rachaad White in carries every week, clearly, wouldn't be surprised by it. I'd be maybe a touch more surprised by it with Roschon, but not totally shocked.
Yeah, you know what I'm thinking about here is like the genius, again, of Howie Roseman, where he's like, he won't pay okay running backs or even, decent running backs, but he'll pay like Saquon Barkley, that level. Because last year we saw this with Miles Sanders. Yeah. He goes to Carolina, loses the job to Chuba Hubbard, who if you scooped him up and were stashing him for a while, that worked out great when eventually, even though Sanders was making so much money, Hubbard took that job and ended up top 10 in touches among running backs. Is it the same thing? DeAndre Swift leaves Philly. He goes to Chicago. He's struggling. He's getting paid a lot. Does Roschon Johnson take that job? Certainly he's going to take a larger piece. We saw it this past week, and Johnson outplayed him straight up. So it's interesting to see if that follows the same exact path. But I'm with you. I added Johnson in a bunch of leagues.
All right, so we're all cold on DeAndre Swift
Yeah,
and
no
Roschon
doubt, have
Johnson
to be
is a
right
guy
now.
that you got to at least look at.
I think you keep Swift on your bench for now, but can't start him right now.
Yeah, we've all got him outside our top 25 for this week, but just because
I got a fun flex decision in a deeper league, so these are the kind of choices you're making in flex. I know where Mike's going to go on this one. DeAndre Swift or Garrett Wilson drawing the Pat Surtain.
Stop.
You know where I'm going to go? I mean, I'm still going to go Wilson.
Yeah.
Even though there's massive.
That's a tough one, right?
Yeah, I don't know if we're going to talk about this today, maybe tomorrow, but Wilson has been aligning in the slot a lot, so he might be able to dodge Surtain enough to put up a decent day. I mean, hit one big play in the slot, maybe you're fine. But
I'm hoping.
I asked that question on social. I was like, do you dare sit Garrett Wilson based on what Surtain has done to ones this year? Denver as a team has allowed the fewest fantasy points, so it is a really tough call, but a player of that caliber who Aaron Rodgers is trying to keep happy, it's hard to bench him.
That feels like he's not been Mike Evans, but it feels like the Mike Evans conversation where it's like, how do you bench this guy?
Same thing last week. And you know what? Benching Evans was the right call.
Yeah. So difficult. All right, let's talk a couple tight ends before we move on. Zach Ertz, this season, 12 receptions, 128 yards, tight end 9, although I'm really having a hard time being able to parse out stats at the tight end position.
No, I was going to say, like, he deserves to be hot because he has performed over expectation at tight end, but am I totally enthused about starting him now?
No, he has a 17% target share. He's been a top 10 scorer the last 2 weeks because of the state of the position, but I just don't see a high ceiling. And by the way, the Commanders, you know where they sit in offensive EPA right now?
I'm going to go with third. Second. Wow.
Second. I mean, they're crushing it offensively. All 3 games, their offense has been terrific.
Yeah.
Field, you put out a tweet the other day. I don't think that my Twitter was working, though, because I was having a hard time making the picture load. Can we look at it real quick?
Yeah,
Me
we
too.
can
That's
pull
where maybe
this
you can
up.
explain this.
Yeah, maybe our producer Tyler can throw this one up here on the screen. But I worked really hard on this one. It was with the help of ESPN Research plus the ESPN Great Graphics Department, I had them make a list and put up a visual graphic of every tight end that scored at least 8 fantasy points in a game this week, in all 3 games this season.
It's just a blank. That's just a blank white sheet of paper.
I don't understand.
Yeah, it is. It's a piece of
it.
printer paper. Yeah.
Is this a joke or something? Or
This would be a joke. Yes.
It's a joke to all your fantasy teams.
The tight end spot has been on a collective bye week for the past 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Real talk. Like, what do you think is more likely to happen? The field just stays completely average and substandard like it's been so far this season, or one player becomes like a complete outlier and totally dominates and kicks butt the rest of the
Zach Ertz.
Okay, that's the answer.
I think what's going to happen is a handful are going to emerge as the
I'm talking like
McBride
just completely separate himself from
like one person's going to outscore everyone by 100. I mean, maybe who's most likely? Let's ask that. Who's most likely to do that? It might be McBride, right? I know he might be out this week,
protocol. I would still say Sam Laporta, but he's hurt.
Yeah.
I don't know, man.
I could see it though. I could see 1, 2, 3, maybe really separating themselves, but. There's so many injuries too. There's just like almost all of them have either missed a game or are questionable for this week or still out. Njoku, Ingram, we'll see if they play this week. I mean,
incoming Will Dissly breakout season. It's going to be like,
Yeah, he's funny because he has like a 10% target share and he runs like 3 routes a game. Yeah. So it's just one of them guys that.
And he still may have more fantasy points than Travis Kelce so far.
Don't say
Mark Andrews.
It doesn't feel good.
All right.
It's going to be hilarious when it's like week 15. We're like, all right, tight end 1 in our rankings, Mark Andrews. He's remember early in the season we were panicking and then he just went off against the Bills in week 4. All right. I hope so.
For what it's worth, Will Dissly does not have more fantasy points than Travis Kelce. Everyone can take a collective sigh of relief on that one.
Oh, man.
All right, new segment called Committee or Commit to He. We're talking about running backs by committee here, guys.
Who is he or who is him? I'm him.
Fields, you kind of led into this a little bit with the Bucky Irving conversation.
Spoiled it.
Yeah, that's all right, though. We got Rachaad White and Bucky Irving. This definitely feels like a committee after the eye test the last couple weeks. How are you approaching them? Like, I don't think that we can start Bucky Irving yet, but he should be on people's benches.
Should be added to all rosters by now. He is just a far better runner than Rachaad White. Rachaad White has 0 runs of 15 yards this season. Bucky Irving has a run of at least 20 yards in 2 out of 3 games. Rachaad White is getting some passing game work, but it's much of what we saw last year. it's dump offs. It's not like it's designed upfield opportunities. It's just basically Baker's under duress, dump it off to Rachaad White for 3 yards in a cloud of dust. I came into the season with real concerns on Rachaad White. Those have been realized. Bucky Irving, I would not be surprised if he is one day the Bucs starting running back.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if they're splitting carries. I don't think White goes away in passing situations. They seem to trust him in that department. He is 5th in targets among running backs. That's going to keep him on the fantasy radar. I don't know. I mean, I think some of this yards before contact can be an O-line stat. It could also be a player stat. Rachaad White, 0.1 yards before contact so far this season. He's getting nothing before that initial contact. It's 3.7 for Irving. We'll see if that starts to level out going forward. But here's the thing. White's snaps are about the same as last year, 71% of snaps. That's a huge number. But his share of the carries has gone from 66% to 49%. So I think that's what you're going to see is Irving is explosive. They're going to use him more. They're going to split the carries. But White, I don't think he goes away in passing situations. So it might limit both of them all year. And by the way, they have said that spacing head coach Todd Bowles, yes, just totally spacing right now. He said they're both going to be involved. They're both going to continue to play.
Here's the scary part for Rachaad White. Bucky Irving led all FBS running backs last year in catches. He's awesome as a receiver. By the way, he also averaged over 7 yards a carry on between the tackles run. This is a good football player.
I like that.
So what do you think? Do you think that he's going to take control of this backfield or be the 1A or the clear one or what? How do you?
Wouldn't surprise me if Bucky Irving is the clear one at some point.
Interesting. Okay. I mean, I did like him as a prospect too.
Though maybe the one, like maybe it's closer to where we're at right now with Rachaad White and Bucky Irving. Like the role that
just flip-flopped, you're saying?
Yes, like Bucky Irving's like a top 25 back for us. Rachaad White's like a top 35 back for us.
Did it.
Way to go, Mike Clay.
Mike broke it.
Freaking Mike Clay, always messing with his
up
microphone
the whole show.
in the middle of the show.
Yep.
All right, but I can fix it because I have 2 arms. So you guys just keep going.
Okay.
See where
jerk.
No, it's well.
Let's talk the
Next
Bengals
to your leg.
running
It's
backs.
next to your leg over here. All right, we're going to talk about Zach Moss and Chase Brown. You just mentioned a huge snap share, obviously, for the other side of this with Rachaad White. When I look at the snap share for Chase Brown and Zach Moss, Zach Moss out-snapping Chase Brown 75% to 25%.
Yeah, it's clear. I mean, this is a clear, for now, starting running back and a clear change of pace running back. Zach Moss playing much more than Chase Brown. Chase Brown getting a little bit of work in the passing game, but if the Bengals are in a goal-to-go situation, it is much more likely to be Zach Moss. It's, I think, a pretty decent matchup this weekend. The Panthers kind of tightened the screws last week as a run defense. They were allowing 199.5 rushing yards per game in the first 2 weeks. They were much better against the Raiders, but still not good enough that I am unafraid of starting Zach Moss this week.
Yeah, no, I'm in on Moss. This is not much of a committee. I mean, it's been clearly Zach Moss. We expected him to lead in carries. That's been the case. But here's the concern for Brown. If you look at routes and targets, it's 57-22 in favor of Moss, 11-6 in targets. It's not even close. So Moss is being treated as the lead back, and it's really that simple. Brown has run it well when they've asked him to, over 7 yards per carry, but the sample's so small. It's the Moss show, and he was a top 10 scorer last week. Yep. He is 19th in my rankings in a good matchup against Carolina. He's a borderline lineup lock.
Are you able to drop Chase Brown, or does he still need to be rostered?
Yes. You can drop him in 10 and 12 teamers.
You think so?
No doubt.
If you need a spot, for sure.
Okay. If you need a spot for someone like, would you rather have Bucky Irving over Chase Brown?
I would,
100%. Yeah.
Bucky Irving added in over 17.5% of fantasy.
Nice.
Yeah, still just under 50% rostered.
Brown has fallen to that conversation of guys like end of your bench running backs. If the starter gets hurt, they'll obviously see a big boost in value. That's not a player that must be rostered. That's just an end of bench stash.
All right. Let's talk about the Titans. Tony Pollard and Tajay Spears. This
Same
one
answer.
is a very clear answer. Tony Pollard is the guy that's getting all the work here. I mean, Tajay Spears is still pretty efficient when he gets the football, but it is clearly the Tony Pollard show here.
Basically 3 times as many rushes so far this season for Tony Pollard compared to Tajay Spears, and 3 more targets than Tajay Spears. So there is no edge going in Spears' way right now. Pollard's been pretty solid, actually, this season. It's almost like what we saw from Tony Pollard early in his Dallas career when he had his breakout was never going to be sustainable. But what we saw last year in the featured back role was also never going to be sustainable. He settled right in between those two extremes and looks like sorry to be lame and use the same expression we always do, but like a low-end RB2 to me.
Yeah, they keep saying they want to use Spears more, and he has been a little beat up, so maybe that's part of it. But for now, we just have to say, all right, it's been 3 weeks. They're 3 straight weeks. It's been the Tony Pollard show. He's dominating in all categories. I mean, the targets are kind of close, but Pollard has an edge there on top of dominating the carries. It's not even a conversation. In Miami, top 5 in fantasy points to running back. So especially for this week, Pollard, again, very much like Moss. I have them ranked almost identical, fringe RB2.
What happens with this team? Can I just ask this? With Will Levis under center, like that's one of the only reasons why I'm a little nervous about Tony Pollard, because it just feels like, when does it get to the point where they just start putting 8 men in the box and saying, all right, we're going to let Will Levis just do Will Levis things?
I don't know. I mean, you still have Hopkins and Pollard and Boyd. I think, not to mention Okonkwo's, can make some plays at tight end. I think, and they're going to keep throwing it too. So I think he'll be okay.
You're not worried about that? All right. Okay. All right, then it's just me.
We just need Will Levis to just lean totally into like Jameis Winston that year in Tampa.
Yes,
dude.
Just keep flinging it, man.
I like that call right
Throw 30 picks, we don't care. Throw 32 and
like
touchdowns,
that.
and we're good.
That.
I would love that. All right, let's talk about the Steelers. Najee Harris and Jalen Warren.
Another one.
We're hoping that Jalen Warren was going to be a part of this offense. Instead, it is the Najee Harris show, and it's not even close.
This might be the most disparate of all of them, right?
Yeah, I mean, Warren's not healthy. So this is not even fair, really. What?
Now he's not, yeah.
Well, no, I mean, he wasn't coming into the season. He was barely active for week 1. He was very limited in week 1. He started maybe to come on a little week 2, and then he was pulled from last week's game, and now he's getting an MRI. And I don't even have him listed here because he's not in the projections. I don't think he's going to play. I think he's like 5% chance to play in this game this week. So I think it's going to be Harris and Patterson.
This is a classic Arthur Smith thing where you just have one running back you give the ball to all the time, right? That's exactly
that big,
what
powerful
he did
guy.
in Atlanta.
Loves that big, powerful guy.
That's what it is.
Yeah, and Najee can hold some value. I don't think there's a lot of upside with Najee. He has yet to find the end zone this season.
Really?
Volume's really good, but he does not have the same upside because of that. I mean, look at them. They don't score a lot of points on offense. But as long as this defense keeps games either close or the Steelers maintain a lead, then Najee should wind up being this extremely boring, volume-heavy. I think it's more of a flex than an RB2.
Yeah, I mean, I have him 28, so I agree with you here against the Colts. I'll say this. Last week, Jalen Warren played 22 snaps, and Cordell Patterson still had 4 carries and 5 targets.
Oh, he's playing
game.
this week.
Patterson,
so he's baby.
What?
Let's go. Patterson?
Oh, yeah, he'll be the
Patterson
complement.
week. Yeah, baby.
It'll be probably 55% of the snaps for Harris, maybe 60, and then the other 35-40 or 40 to 45 for Patterson in this game. So if you're in like a 16-teamer in desperate straits at receiver or at a tight end, oh my God, he plays all the positions.
He plays everything.
You name it. At running back, then Patterson might be a guy that's out there.
I feel like Mike actually just added me when he said that. Like, if you're in a deep league and you're desperate, like, did you control the waiver ads in the Gasco League?
Actually, I guess everyone's in a deep league and is desperate right now because no one's performing.
Yeah. For what it's worth, Justin Fields, 3 carries inside the 5-yard line. Najee Harris only has 1 so far this season. So
yeah, they don't get there very often anyways.
No, they don't. All right, we got one more we're going to talk about. Actually, we got 2 more, but the second one's going to come on our Thursday Night Football preview. There's definitely a committee in that one. Aaron Jones and Ty Chandler, and this one feels very obvious. We had hopes that, maybe not hopes, we had thoughts that Ty Chandler might be a part of this running back room, but it is.
He is. Just he's getting outperformed.
In a major way by Aaron Jones. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, look at the snaps. You see him on the screen, 96 to 60. Ty Chandler has been playing, but early on this year.
Fantasy points, though.
I will say this, too, though, for those snaps, a little bit more of Chandler when the games have been out of hand, and they've been kicking some teams' booties.
I mean, yeah, week 1, he got plenty of run. Like, he was being really mixed in. I think Jones is starting to separate himself a little bit. Jones looks spry. You know, he didn't play a lot last year. He finished the season strong, and it's carried over to this year. We'll see if he can keep it going long term at his old ancient age of 29. But so far, so great. I have him at 10th this week. So he's playing. What can you say? He's averaging 18 points a game. He's been really good out of the gate.
Except you're welcome.
Here's a question, Field, and this has nothing to do with football, but you just said he's been playing like booty. You've said it a couple times when someone's like playing like booty cheeks.
Yeah, booty cheeks. Yeah.
But like, I feel like I have a hard time with that one because that's such a negative connotation. Like, aren't booty cheeks nice?
They were kicking booty. You know what? I don't say butt these days because I have a 2-year-old who likes to say booty.
Okay.
No, it's just what she says instead, right?
All right.
She's almost 3, so she talks a lot. She has a million thoughts on her mind.
Are there any other things where you have like changed your vocabulary because you have a 2, almost 3-year-old?
You know what? He says the F word a lot, so he's new.
More than anything, you know what I would say? I mean, boo-boo, obviously. Like, I have a boo-boo shoulder, not like,
You did say you had to go potty when you were talking to me earlier.
Potty, yep.
Number 2.
That's another one.
I got a number 2.
More than anything, my diet's changed. And let me tell you, one of the most underrated parts about having young children, the food they eat's incredible. Like, oh, I have to have chicken nuggets and mac and cheese again for dinner? Don't mind if I do take half of your plate.
Exactly.
It's amazing. You know, like, they're again, these are very young children. Like the idea of being like, yep, time now for some sautéed spinach with no flavor, doesn't appeal to them. So we try our best, but you got to get some calories in there as well.
Yeah.
And some of the stuff that they want to eat is incredible.
Yeah. A lot of peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, I would feel like you get at least a handful of those.
Oh, yeah.
I'm big on dino nuggets.
Be on peanut butter.
Uncrustables are great. Like a lot of them.
Yeah, we have them in the freezer.
Yep.
Yeah.
Eggo waffles have been back in my life.
Butter pasta, get ready for that era.
We're already in the butter pasta.
You're already at butter
era.
pasta.
We're in the butter pasta era. My older one likes just like butter, just in general. Anything with butter, she's good with.
Butter on it.
Like you can throw butter on cereal and be butter.
I'll tell you what, though, it's nice when they start to hit an age like my 10-year-old where she wants to eat sushi and try and eat steak and stuff. That's nice when you could share those kind of new foods with.
That's the way it is with Manny. My son is 19, going to be 20 soon, and he's very much he's like you, Mike. He wants to get in the kitchen. He loves cooking. He loves doing all of his own stuff. So he definitely eats a lot more like vegetable-y stuff than I do. Sometimes I wish he was more of like a 6-year-old so that I could take his
that's
chicken
bad
nuggets.
for you.
I understand it's bad for me, but it tastes so good, like Field is saying.
But it's crazy to me that there's a time where your kids actually cook for you as opposed to the opposite way.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Oh my gosh. It's
Ring pops, another thing that's not often people. I'm not trying to get the dentist yelling at us from afar here, but I had a ring pop this summer, and I was like, that was an incredible experience. I haven't had in years.
So you mentioned the dentist. I feel really bad about this. I just mentioned that my son's 19 years old. He went to the dentist yesterday, and afterwards, I was talking to my buddy on the phone, and he was my buddy John, and he said, when my kids get done at the dentist, especially when they were young, we would always take them for ice cream afterwards because the dentist was always such a crappy experience. Mm-hmm. And I mentioned that in front of Manny, and he turned to me and he said, "So we're getting ice cream, right?" And I was like, "Great! Now I've put it into existence. I can't not do this." So
Honestly, I feel like that was really strong parenting by you.
Yeah,
you
that's
got
what it
an
is.
afternoon ice cream. That sounds
too.
great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, good. Well, it's nice to know I'm doing things right.
You're doing awesome. Yeah.
All right, let's talk about this Thursday night football
Let's do
preview.
it. Again, I'm excited for football.
Cowboys and Giants. We got a number of things to talk about. Let's just continue this running back by committee situation first because we're already here. When you look at these Dallas Cowboy running backs, Rico Dowdle, Ezekiel Elliott, Dalvin Cook might be a part of this as well. I mean, how are you approaching this? Is there anyone, Mike Clay, that you want to start from this Dallas Cowboys offense?
No, not right now. I'm hoping that at some point Dalvin Cook plays like he looked in those shirtless photos in the offseason and he has something left in the tank and they bring him in and he takes control. But I don't think he's going to be up for this game. I think the report was he's not going to be there this week, so we'll see at some point. But for now, there's an answer if you have to pick from this duo for your flex. I mean, I'll just compare the numbers here. Snaps, 88-70 in favor of Dowdle, 23-19 in carries, 45-36 in routes, 11-8 in targets, and the fantasy points. Well, it's a no-go for both guys. That's a no for me. Yeah.
Dog.
No for me, dog. You got to say dog.
It's a no for me, dog. Yeah.
It's going to be a no for me, dog. That was Randy
swear to
Jackson
God,
on American Idol.
I totally spaced there on the end of that. My brain's gone.
Oddballs, Randy Jackson, anything else?
Yeah, I don't know what's wrong with my brain lately. I don't know. I'm pushing 40, and
is it because I let my ankles out and you're having a hard time keeping yourself?
He's intoxicated.
It's like I'm looking into the lights. I can't. But they're both under 8 fantasy points per game, so that's a no for me, dog. On both running backs. But if you have to pick one, it's Dowdle.
Field, when you look at the rest of this offense, I'm definitely starting Cee Dee Lamb. That's not a question. And Jake Ferguson with the state of tight end position, he's a starter for me. And we talked about Dak Prescott a little bit earlier in the show when we were talking about the Patrick Mahomes conversation. So
I think he has a nice night tonight. That Giants secondary obviously leaves a lot to be desired. Not that Adoree Jackson or Drew Phillips, our third-round pick, is a good player.
He's out.
He's out, but he is out. And him and Adoree Jackson both out. So I would say that those two, combined with the struggles of Deonte Banks early in his career and the relative lack of depth in general, all give me optimism that Dak could have a nice night. It's a gut check night for the Cowboys tonight. It is an absolute gut check night because they're 1-2. The pressure mounts when you're the Cowboys. That's just how it works. Mike McCarthy in the final year of his contract. We all know that. If they lose tonight, is Bill Belichick checking out real estate on Monday morning and batting down Friday morning? I mean,
yeah, everybody's kind of putting him. He's been put on Philly too. With
Philly, Jacksonville,
he's
Dallas. Belichick's going to have to go 5-star recruit style, where he goes and just has a table of hats, and he says, I am officially committing to. Be great.
That'd be so good.
Do you think he would take on a team this year if it goes to
that, so fast? Yeah, I mean, the interesting part about the NFL with the interim process is that you can just hire whoever you want right away.
Yeah.
So
have to wait.
It would not require you to, and also as we know, there are all kinds of you have to wait on all kinds of things once the season is over. There are all kinds of things that you have to sort of go through. And I think if you're I don't think it's a slam dunk you would take an interim job, but if it was the right job and you take the interim job, it puts you in pole position to get the full-time job after the season. The team would still have to go through the correct process, which would include interviewing minority candidates, multiple at both the head coach and the potentially offensive coordinator if there's an offensive coordinator vacancy. So there's a lot of stuff you'd have to go through. But I do think it's possible that Belichick is the first call that any team that thinks about a coaching change makes.
Do teams have to do that when they let go of their head coach and they just have an interim head coach within the team? Do they have to go through that entire coaching process as well?
Sure do. The Raiders did so with Antonio Pierce as an example. You got to go. You still have to actually interview
while the season is happening. It's not just an off-season
Yep.
thing. Yep. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. That's just a little NFL nugget. I just appreciate that. On the other side of this, when we're looking at people to be able to start, obviously you're playing Malik Neighbors.
We got one absolute mash play, which is Malik Neighbors.
Yep. And then you've got Devin Singletary.
We talked about this a couple days ago on the show. You know, if the Cowboys don't come out gangbusters on offense and this is a bit of a slog for them, then I think the Giants' game plan is going to be this. Feed 26 Devin Singletary and 1 Malik Neighbors. Maybe more 1 than 26. But they each had a third of the offensive opportunities in week 2. And then in week 3, they were both excellent once again. I also want to give a shout out to Devin Singletary for something he did at the end of the game against the Browns last week. It may have cost you, and I don't really care if you lost your fantasy football match.
Well, hey, 50% of the people that won because of it, the other 50% lost because of it. Or, you know, it goes both ways.
Right, I would agree on that.
Also,
this is just like, you know, I know that it's natural for us to get mad when the players do that. If you have them on your fantasy team and it costs you 6.1 points.
Explain the play just in case people.
Devin Singletary at the end of the game, the Giants were up against the Browns. It was 21-15, and he breaks through and rushes down to about the 3-yard line and then just sort of scoots onto his butt and intentionally puts himself down. The clock runs to the 2-minute warning. They took 3 knees, game over. If he had scored, yes, it was incredibly unlikely that they would have lost that game. But the Browns last year had a game with Joe Flacco where they came back and scored 2 touchdowns in like the last 2.5 minutes of the game and won that game. So I know it sucks for fantasy purposes, but like I just appreciate like good heady play by somebody like Devin Singletary in that instance because we see a lot of the opposite, right? Guys in 2-minute drills where wide receiver catches the pass, spins the ball, gives the first down side, check me out, look at me. Next thing you know, 8 seconds more have run off the clock.
So I want to say this really quickly. I totally agree with you. But what does the team do in this situation when a player's got like an incentivized contract? I mean, I'm leaving a touchdown off the board knowing that I could have scored here, but this helps the team. Like, does the team, like, will teams do the right thing by players?
Well, you can. Here's what I'd say.
They often do, right?
If it's like, hey, he comes up 1 yard or 1 touchdown short of a $250,000 bonus, the player and the agent go to the team and just say,
come on.
And the team can... There are ways you just give the player a signing bonus
Okay.
for $250K to make good on it, which you often see. The Eagles and Patriots have been amongst the teams that have been particularly aggressive in honoring players like that. The Browns did that last year with Joe Flacco when he sat out that game after playing so well in Week 18. So, yes, you can find ways to make good on that. But I kind of drifted from my thought about what matters for Devin Singletary, which is that if they want to grind this game out, there's no better defense right now to do it against than the Cowboys, right?
Yeah, no doubt about it. Number 1 in yards, touchdowns, and fantasy points to running backs. So take the number 1 running back, just the number 1, not the depth guys, the number 1 running back they've faced in all 3 games this season. How many fantasy points per game is that number 1 back? So there's 3 running backs. How many are they averaging per game against?
I was going to say 15 too, yeah.
31 fantasy points per game. The number 1 running back.
I was saying 15 on top of Fields 15. So we were saying 30.
So you were
together.
closer. Good job.
Combined 30.
Yeah, 31 fantasy points per game.
Kamara 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, who else did
Derrick
they
Henry last week.
Yeah, Derrick Henry. And then
Jerome
who's
Ford, week 1.
Yeah, Jerome Ford had a huge game. Wow. Yeah, or, he might have had like he had like 19 or I think or something like that. So
Singletary's got a good role in general too, right? Like he
had a big game last week.
But he's got a good role too. I'm just saying like his role is really solid. Like whether you think he's a top 15 running back or more like 25th best starting running back in the NFL, he has, I would say in terms of volume, like what, a top 12 role in the NFL right now?
Yeah, he has 17 touches a game. He'll take that all day long. Yep. So no doubt, this is you'd be hard pressed to bench him in this game against Dallas.
All right, let's pick this game, guys. I'm going to take the New York Football Giants.
Ooh, good. I'm glad somebody else did it. I'm going to take the Cowboys, but I'm closing my eyes for a reason.
I think the Cowboys, despite how horrific they've been to start, especially in defense, they have the raw talent to be a contender. So I'm going to say they get it done and get to 2-2, 24-20.
All right.
A rare normal score for me.
If you want to have a little bit of fun while you're watching the game tonight, we got an ESPN bet parlay.
Right.
Here's what we are taking here on Fantasy Focus. This is our Fantasy Focus parlay. Cee Dee Lamb, anytime touchdown. Malik Neighbors, anytime touchdown. Seeing both of those guys get it done through the air.
This seems fun.
And then a little bit of goal line action for Ezekiel Elliott. Another anytime touchdown. The odds were plus 850. Now they're plus 1,100. Figured why not go big or go home? 21 plus. If you have a gambling problem, you can call the number at the bottom of the screen.
So read it one more time. 3 anytime touchdown scores.
3 anytime touchdowns for Cee Dee Lamb, Malik Neighbors, and Ezekiel Elliott.
All right. There you go.
I've heard of those guys.
Yeah, hopefully they come through for everyone here.
Yeah, Neighbors, the #1 scoring fantasy receiver, but #2 in fantasy points per game receiver. You know who's #1 is?
Ooh, at wide receiver.
Juwan Jennings.
No. Because he played in the first 2 games. Just
who missed week 1 amongst wide receivers?
No, he played. He only played week 1. That's why he's first. It's A.J. Brown.
Oh, wow.
A.J. Brown is actually first in fantasy points per game because he had a huge
Brown,
week 1 and then
no
hasn't played
practice
since.
Yesterday.
Yeah, it looks like he's probably out again. And hopefully Devontae Smith plays. If not, that Eagles receiving room is going to be Dallas Goedert. And then it's like, okay, John Dotson. He's on IR.
Oh, that's
Paris
right.
Campbell.
John Dotson, Paris Campbell, the long shots.
Johnny Wilson, the 6'6" rookie. Like, that's going to be who the Eagles are running out there.
Yeah.
Yikes, guys. I mean, if ever there was a time for your Jahan Dotson shares to pay off, it would be this week if you don't get Devontae.
Saquon might have 57 carries on Sunday.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. They're going to run it as much as they can.
All right. This is a good show, guys.
Great show.
Thanks for hanging out with me again. This was a ton
Always
of fun.
fun.
We're going to be back tomorrow. Obviously, make sure if you're doing Pigskin Pick'em with us, make sure you get your Thursday night pick in.
I got to get my picks in right now.
Don't forget
By the way,
to do it.
my daughters are doing it this year with me, and
they
I'm in
crushing
3rd
you?
out of 3 with those.
Shut up.
Wow. You're getting
Yeah, a lot of upsets the last 2 weeks. I was looking at, our friends over at NFL Pick Watch track the whole industry. My daughter would be like right there with Bowen, like 7th in the way. Like the entire industry. She's crushing it.
Can we have her on the show next
Yeah,
week?
she's
I was
subbing
gonna
in.
say,
for me
are they
tomorrow.
available anytime soon or no?
Yeah,
Seriously,
she can take
Mike.
over. She's
I got to make
crushing all
my
of us.
picks. Okay. Yep.
All right, have fun watching Thursday Night Football. We love you guys. We'll be back tomorrow with Stefania Bell breaking down everything you need to know heading into Week 4. We love you guys. Don't forget to love each other. Be kind to yourself, and we'll see you guys on Friday.
I made them all.
Enjoy
Later,
Thursday
Gators.
Night Football.
Yeah.
Not a bad show, Mike. You were passable this time.